You know that cool reverse vocal swell thing where it like swells up into the first line of the song? It sounds really cool. It sounds something like this. Cool, right? And you can actually do that vocal reverse swell thing inside GarageBand completely free with the built-in plugins in GarageBand. It's super cool, and I want to show you how to do just that. Welcome back to the Band Guide. I'm your band guy, Colin, and let's look at how to create a reverse vocal swell. All right, so we're inside GarageBand here, and first off, I just want to shout out Marco Condic. Marco is a member of the Band Guide community. He's super talented, and he's been through my Ultimate GarageBand mixing course, and this is his song, Less Panic, More Disco. And I think it's a perfect example of this reverse vocal swell, and I wanted to bring it to the Band Guide community. So thank you, Marco, for letting us use your track. I'll link to him below so you can check out more of his music. This is a little bit of an excursion for him, so definitely check him out, even if this isn't your style. But I love this track. I think he's done a great job on it. Send some love to Marco in the comments and check out his music. Let's go and listen to this and talk about how to create a reverse vocal swell. So just to remind you of what this sounds like, let's listen to this one more time here. Cool, right? It's almost like eerie leading into it, but it cues your ears to listen for that vocal when it comes in. I love it. Now, what we're actually doing here, you can see the reverse swell up here. And what this actually is a reverb tail coming off the start of the first word. So it's leading into the first word. Reverb is the sound that you would hear in the real world, where if you walk into a huge open room and you sing or you clap and you hear it trail off, bouncing around the walls of the room, that is reverb. But we can get kind of crazy with reverb in production to make a really interesting production. And that's what this trick is. It's super cool. So there's a few steps to this. And the first thing you'll need to do is just create a fresh audio track. So we'll go up here to this little plus button to create a new audio track. Just hit create. And we'll hit Y to close that. And now we have a fresh audio track. And what we need to do is copy our vocal up to this audio track. So you can either do this for just one phrase or word, if that's all you need to do a reverb tail for, or for an entire phrase. I know I'm only going to do the first word here, but it won't hurt for me to do a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and do this entire first line here. So I'm going to hold Option on the keyboard and click and drag this up to this new audio track here. And let's go and listen to this in solo.
I need less panic.
Nothing special, it's just the vocal. Sounds great, great recording, but there's no processing on it. So we're gonna need to add processing on it to get that reverse reverb tail. So let's start by just putting a reverb on here. So we've created a new audio track, we've copied our audio to it, and now we're adding reverb to that. So we're just gonna do the space designer that's built into GarageBand. And we wanna take our dry output to all the way down. We want to mute it. We only want to hear the reverb output. So listen to this now.
I need less panic, more disco at home.
Now, I'm just using the default setting in this song, but play around with your settings. Play around with some of the other sides of reverbs. Maybe try this ambient hall, try a plate reverb, and see if you can find one that you really like the tone of for your song. Also, if you want a really, really short swell, you'll want to shorten the length here or find a really short length. So you might want to find just one of these recording rooms that's a really, really short length. So play around with the length as well. But no matter what, go ahead and mute your output. Take that all the way down to 0. And then, now that we have that on here, as you can hear, it just sounds like reverb on this track, right? So to get that reverse reverb onto this first word, what we actually need to do is flip this whole audio track. And we can do that really easily by hitting E on the keyboard or going up to these scissors up here to go to our editor window. And with this audio region selected, we just need to go down here to reverse playback. And now, this is going to sound like this. Probably not what we're looking for, but what it gives us is the end of this phrase is now the very first line. So you can see that word there is actually this word here. So the reverb that comes off of this is the reverb tail leading in to that first word. So now in order to get that back into our session, we're gonna have to export it out. So what I recommend you do is set your cycle region, this little region up here, just drag this so that it's going over the entire length of the audio, and make sure you leave enough space at the end for the reverb tail. So listen to that last word and make sure that it has enough length at the end of the cycle region here to get the entire reverb tail at the end. So it sounds like it ends somewhere around there. So I should be fine with one measure. I'll go and do 2 measures because it doesn't hurt to have a little bit extra. And now that we have that selected, we want to go up to Share, Export Song to Disk. And now pay attention to where you save this. It's important that you can go back in and find it. We'll just title this Vocal Swell 2. And then make sure you've selected Wave, so it's full resolution audio quality, uncompressed 24-bit, and then make sure you select Turn On Export Cycle Area. That way you're not exporting out the entire song. It takes forever, and it's a larger audio file than you need. Go ahead and hit Export here. That'll take a second. And then now that you have this new audio file, we need to create a track for it. So we'll just create a new audio track here. And then go to your Finder and find where you saved that file and just drag it in to this track here. So now if we solo this track, still in reverse, right? Probably not quite what we want still. But what we can do is hit E to bring up our editor or go to these scissors up here and now reverse this playback. So we've created this track here and now we just need to line it up where that first word lines up with our pre-chorus. If we listen to this in solo, so it can take a little bit of time to get this lined up. Typically what I'm looking for is where you can see kind of an indicator of a hard word right there, hard start to a word in the swell. So you see how this word is right here. That's a start of it right there. So I'm going to drag it till that lines up with this right here. Close the editor window. So you can see here, we'll zoom in a little bit more even, that these are now lining up where they're hitting at roughly the same time. So just look for a pocket like that where it looks like it might be the start of a word and then listen to it.
I need less panic, more disco at home.
Now for some songs, having this like super swell in constantly is the move. It's totally the right feel for the song. I think for this song, it's probably a bit much. But there's some songs where that's the exact right thing. For this song, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it right at the start of that first word. So I'll let it bleed into the first word a little bit. We'll just hit Command T here to split it, and then I'll just delete that audio. So now it will swell into it. Right? Now, officially, that's all you have to do to create this reverse vocal swell. I know there's a few steps to it, so I'll list all the steps in the description for this video below, but there's a few other things you can do to even take this a step further and kind of make it over the top. Let's look at those really quickly. They all have to do with putting plugins on this specific track. So if we hit B to bring up our Smart Control window, now we can process this track. First and foremost, before we even do that though, I always recommend that you name your track. So we'll go and name this Vocal Swell. That way you can easily move around in your session and find what you're looking for anytime. So the first thing that I often do with one of these tracks is try to make it even wider than it sounds naturally. So if we listen to this here in solo, it's pretty wide already. I'll go and extend it so we can hear it even more. It's pretty wide already, but by adding a modulation plugin like the chorus plugin under modulation here in GarageBand, we can make it feel even wider than this. I'll go and exaggerate it a little bit more. It's subtle, but it makes it feel like that vocal's really swelling in out from the sides. If I turn this off, it's subtle, but you can hear a little bit more width come from it. So that's one of my favorite tricks for making this feel even wider, even more extreme. The second one is to actually add a little bit of reverb at the end of this. So we'll just put on the same Space Designer plugin. And I like to do this because I find it helps this track kind of sit in the mix a little bit better. So what I like to do is just mix it so it's a little bit lower output, so there's a little bit less of the reverb sound. And especially if I'm doing just a single word like I have here, where it cuts off hard, if I turn this reverb off, it just is a hard stop. But by adding this reverb on, it gives you just this little bit of a tail that helps it sit in the mix. And so if we listen to that with everything now. So those two bonuses can really help out. And the last one doesn't require a plugin, but just adding a little bit of volume automation. So if you take your volume here and you just kind of make it a little bit more extreme, maybe bring it down in the beginning and right at the end you exaggerate it so it comes way up. Could be something crazy like this. A little bit of that automation can help it be even more over the top. Now, tricks like this are super helpful to make your song more interesting and sound more professional in some ways, but ultimately, if your song isn't mixed, it's never going to sound professional. So I want to give you something to help with that. I put together a completely free Pro Mix checklist that walks through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how to do them inside GarageBand completely free. There's a link in the description below where you can grab it completely free. It's really going to help you get a more professional sounding mix inside GarageBand. And before we go, I want to hear from you. Do you have any tricks like this that you've been using in your music to make it a little bit more interesting? I think of them like ear candy. They're just a little bit extra interest. Let me know in the comments below. If there's anything you've used, I'm always looking for more tips and tricks like this. Super fun, super helpful. And if this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time, I can only